Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Anna Morphides, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about how to stop suffering. Suffering is something that a lot of us experience in our human form while we are going through the process of living on this planet. We very often are encountered with the very uncomfortable feelings of suffering. And how do we stop that? How do we give ourselves a different way of living that would feel the opposite of suffering, thriving, succeeding, knowing, trusting, having faith, having optimism? Let's talk about how to stop the suffering. So this is going to be another happy hour episode, or Find Your Happy with Anna Morphides from Many Horse Counseling. And without further ado, we're going to dig right into it. And just like Buddha said, the cause of all suffering is attachment. So if we can understand what we are attaching to, then we can slowly start to release the chains of suffering that weigh or keep us weighed down or are attached to us. We can start to let go of the chains that lead to us suffering. I know for me, and with other people that I have worked with, the very easy thing to do when it comes to attachment is attachment to people and attachment to negative core beliefs about the self, which will definitely lead us into suffering. So for me, for example, core beliefs that I was attached to that were not helpful at all and kept me in suffering in my relationships, not only with the opposite sex or anything that was of romantic nature, but also in relationship to myself when I perhaps failed an exam or got a no when I wanted to get a yes, or if I made a mistake, whatever it was, I would be attaching to core beliefs about myself that sounded like this. I am not good enough. I am unlovable. I am unlikable. I am unwanted. I am not good enough to be loved by others. I'm bound to be rejected. I'm bound to be alone. I am bound to be abandoned. So through my experiences in my life, I would view the world from these lenses. So every time I would make a mistake, I would then subconsciously reinforce the idea that I'm just not good enough. And because I did have an abandonment wound and a rejection wound that I was attaching to as part of my identity, right? Like when I was a kid and I was growing up, and this happens to all children, and the book attached is actually a very good one to read about this concept. So all children, usually from the ages of 0, some research says until 7, some says until 12 years old, we develop an attachment theory and we develop an attachment style, and we also acquire our core beliefs. So attaching to ideas, central beliefs and ideas about ourselves, and developing an attachment style will produce the adult that we are later on in life. And what I attached to as a child was beliefs about myself that I was unlovable, unworthy, not good enough, that I was a failure, that I was not good enough to be loved by others. These are the core beliefs that I attached as part of my identity as a child. I attached those to myself, that was who I was, that was part of my identity based on how my primary caregiver was being with me. So all children will do that. And that's why parenting feels like such a big task to me now. It's not just so much about giving you food and shelter. Yes, those are definitely basic needs, but it turns out the other basic needs, such as to be safe, to be seen, to be secure, and to be soothed, are the most important four S's to fulfill in a child's life in order for it to be securely attached. But unfortunately, only about 50% of the population is securely attached, closer to 60. The rest of us do have an attachment style that is that of anxious or an avoidant or a disorganized nature, which simply means that we have a negative self-view and we view the world through those negative lenses of perception, and we just have to do a little bit more work. So we attach to ideas about ourselves and who we are, and we experience the world through those lenses. So if I were to get a no from a job that I applied, or if I asked out a boy, or if I started dating a boy and then the boy like left me or didn't like me or wanted to end the relationship, I would not look at that situation and say, oh, okay, I understand that people are attracted to each other by means like outside of our control. And for whatever reason, this person does not share the same attraction as I do to them. And therefore, it's okay. And I'm going to find somebody else. And why would I want to be with someone who doesn't want me in the first place? Unless, of course, I was attaching to this idea that I am bound to be rejected, bound to be alone, I am not good enough to be loved by others, then I would continuously bring in people to have that experience so I can realize what my core belief about myself was. So I kept myself in this cycle of suffering in my relationships with the opposite sex because I kept being repeatedly abandoned, rejected, left, not wanted. I kept experiencing the same pattern over and over and over because that was the core belief that I had acquired as a child based on the way that my primary caregiver, my mom for me in this particular instance, was with me when I was growing up. Very critical, never said I love you, never hugged me. So it makes complete sense that I was anxiously attached because my four S's were not fulfilled. I mean, along that, there was also like physical abuse as well. It was totally normal to hit your kids back then. Even our teachers in school hit us back then. So all those experiences led me to have a negative self-view, an insecure attachment style. So I was full of anxiety and I had really negative core beliefs about myself, which later on became my identity. So I identified as that, and I would live my identity day in and day out. Once I realized that I was a big part of my life experience, I feel like I found that out in my late 30s. I was about 38, that I was like, I can't live my life like this anymore. I don't want to feel unwanted, rejected, abandoned. Like it has to feel different. And I read a book, Many Masters, Many Lives by Dr. Brian Weiss, which has changed my life completely, because then I understood that I was just on a life path that I had chosen, that I would experience these core beliefs and this attachment style for myself as part of my living human experience. And I have the power, just in the same way that I chose that I was going to have this path, I have the power to change my attachment style, to untwist my unhelpful core beliefs. And that's the whole basis of cognitive behavioral therapy. So going back to school and becoming a counselor also really helped me, because not only do I now know cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as CBT, to help others, I also had to practice it on myself, and we had to untwist all the negative core beliefs that lived within us in order to free ourselves from the suffering that we kept ourselves into. I kept myself in this cycle of suffering. When I would get a no, I would make it mean that I was not good enough. Instead of making it mean, oh, there's another yes waiting for me, or because there's so many possibilities of like living our life that we don't even have the capacity to sometimes even realize the um, unlimited possibilities that we have to experience life. So we don't really know. So in our small human mind, sometimes we tend to attach, if I had this job, I would be so happy. If I had that particular boyfriend or girlfriend, I would be so happy. Or if I had more money, I would be so happy. Or if this, if that. But the truth is, and I'm so glad to know, it didn't matter who I was attached. No, it didn't matter how much money I had or who I was in a relationship with, because what I was attaching to, then the anxious attachment style that was part of my identity, my negative core beliefs, would have kept me feeling that way over and over. And I would find things to prove, because that's what happens with negative core beliefs. And they actually birth our ego. So that ego part of ourselves will do anything to feed itself and to prove that theory to be right. So if you do 10 things right and you do one thing, quote unquote, wrong, you will, or I used to tend to attach to that one thing to prove the theory that, see, I am not good enough. And in cognitive behavioral therapy, that is called all or nothing thinking. And also, other unhelpful ways that we view the world and we continue to cause ourselves suffering with our thoughts purely is by overgeneralizing, using words such as should. Oh, I should be thinner, or I should be doing this more, or I should be, I must. Instead, we say, I could. You give yourself a choice. I could exercise more, but do I want to? Do I have the time for that? Is it really important to me? Why is that important to me? And that could be with everything. I could change my jobs. Why would I need to do that? I could because I would want to. Maybe I would want to have a different salary. I want to experience something different. When we put ourselves in situations where we say, I must, it means that what we're doing right now is not okay. And therefore, we need to change it in order to perhaps feel differently about ourselves, which again is not good. That will lead to suffering. And there's like 10 ways actually that we keep ourselves in suffering, is by disqualifying the positive, using the should, saying this is my fault, catastrophizing, jumping to conclusions, having a mental filter where we only pay attention to the negative things, labeling ourselves. How often do we label ourselves when we do something and we say things such as, I'm such an idiot, or I'm a complete idiot, or I'm such a loser, or like, how could I do this? Like, labeling should not be a thing that we do to ourselves. What we're supposed, if we're going to label ourselves, we might as well label ourselves with beautiful things such as, you're amazing, you did the best that you could, you are wonderful, you are limitless, you are powerful. Like, remind ourselves of all the beautiful possibilities to live life and to experience life, so we don't suffer anymore by being a version of ourselves that is not serving, staying in connections that are not serving, staying in jobs that are not serving, doing anything that is not serving, because we have the power. And in the same way that we were conditioned to become a certain type of way that leads to our suffering in the first place, just in that same way, we can uncondition ourselves with different things. We can uncondition the old conditions with new conditions. So we start to affirm opposites. We start to meditate. We start to be present, accept our present moment. Don't wish for anything different, not from a state of lack, but like, we can want for things to be different because we are appreciative for what we have right now and everything that we've learned, but we want to experience something different because we feel like we're deserving of it and we are worthy of it. And it's an experience that would be more in alignment of the life that we want to be feeling and living and walking a path. It is okay to have dreams and desires knowing that they can be yours, and you have the power to be a part of that dream. And then we let go of any attachments that we have to anything negative that keeps us away from having those dreams, or thinking that we're not good enough, or not pretty enough, or like just anything enough that's not true. Or if you're in a connection and you keep repeating the patterns to feel your unworthiness wound and your rejection wound, recognize that's what it is. Change your identity. And I know that it requires work, right? Like, because we weren't conditioned overnight. We were conditioned over a long period of time. So minimum 60 days, 21 to 60 days, they say minimum. Let's start at 60 days. That's 2 months at least, where you start to give yourself different affirmations. You watch your thoughts, you change your thoughts, you change your thoughts, you change your life. Change your thoughts. Watch what your thoughts say about you. Watch your inner dialogue. Change it. That is what cognitive behavioral therapy is. Your cognition, your thoughts, do create your behavior. So if you change your thoughts, you will have different behavioral outcome. You are going to be more outgoing. You're going to believe in yourself more and do things more that maybe perhaps before you were scared of doing. And you will recognize your patterns, and you won't stay in what's not serving or hurting you or keeping you in the suffering mode, because you now know you're meant to be thriving, not surviving, and not suffering. I hope this video made sense. If you have any questions about it, I know there's so much more to be said about this topic of suffering and attachment and core beliefs and attachment style theory. There's just so much information, but this is just like the basic of it. Understanding who you are cognitively will set you free from attachment to anything that's not serving you, because you're going to stop attaching to the very same thing that is bringing in that person and or situation that's causing you the suffering in the first place, because we are a 50% contributor in every experience, and it's just meant to be there for our learning and for our growth. Again, thank you so much for watching. I wish you a blessed rest of the day, and if you have any topics that you wanted me to talk about in my next video, please do let me know. And again, with all my love and gratitude, I'll see you next time.